Success comes from having self-discipline. The more driven, motivated, and determined you are to reach your goal, the more success you will have. Embrace relentless self-determination and win. Good morning, dear classmates. Good morning, sir. My topic today is all about self-determination theory by Desi and Ryan. I will be discussing to you by focusing on three questions. First, what is self-determination theory? Second, what can teachers do to promote intrinsic motivation? And third, how to value the impact of self-determination theory in the workplace, in competition, in the school and social setting, and how reward affect motivation for us teachers to our learners. Self-determination theory, or SDT, is a theory of human motivation where individuals are viewed as proactive according to Ryan and Desi 2017. The meta theory overseeing self-determination theory is that all human beings are born with tendencies towards growing, mastering challenges, and integrating new experiences in evolutional manner. It states that people are motivated to grow and change by three innate psychological needs. The concept of intrinsic motivation or engaging in activities for the inherent reward of the behavior itself play an important role in this theory. And another one, self-determination theory seeks to explain how being self-determined impacts motivation. That people feel more motivated to act when they think that what they will do have an effect on the outcome. The first proponent of self-determination theory is Edward L. Deci. He is a professor of psychology and Gowen professor in the social sciences at the University of Rochester and director of its human motivation program. He is well known in psychology for his theories of intrinsic and extrinsic motivation and basic psychological needs. The second proponent is Richard M. Ryan. He is an influential University of Rochester professor emeritus of psychology. He is a clinical psychologist and co-developer of self-determination, an internationally recognized leading theory of human motivation. Psychologists Richard and Ryan developed as STD of motivation, which toppled the dominant belief that the best way to get human beings to perform tasks is to reinforce their behavior with rewards. Self-determination theory composes of what we call the cognitive evaluation theory and organismic integration theory. Cognitive evaluation theory. It assumes that intrinsically motivated behavior is affected by a person's innate need to feel competent and self-determining in dealing with environment. Meaning, we have under this the three basic psychological needs: competence, autonomy, and relatedness. Three basic psychological need. We have a need to perceive that we are competent or we are good at something. We have autonomy or we have choices and control over our actions. And last, we have relatedness. We are connected to others through positive relationship. We go back to what we call competent. Competence, it may seem difficult to change our sense of competence or effectiveness while doing certain behaviors. Perhaps we don't feel particularly effective when doing something like our 9 to 5 job. However, research has found that authentic positive feedback can improve self-determination according to Desi and Ryan 2012. If we aren't receiving this type of feedback from an external source, how might we be able to give it to ourselves? For example, periodically throughout our day, we might pause to consider what we have achieved or done well in the last hour. We tend to dwell on the negative and discount or disregard the positive. So making a conscious effort to notice the positive can go a long way toward increasing our sense of competence. Now, on the autonomy part, are there behaviors that we regularly do but don't enjoy? While autonomous motivation can stem from the sheer enjoyment of an activity, it doesn't have to. As we saw from the theory above, it is possible to internalize extrinsic motivation. One way of doing this through the alignment of the activity with our deepest values. It can be powerful to figure out the values underlying certain behaviors by repeatedly asking ourselves why we want to do that behavior. Asking ourselves, say, for instance, this question that might look a little something like this. Why do I exercise? Answer, because I want to get a shape. Then, why do I want to get a shape? So that I feel strong and healthy. The next one, why do I want to feel strong and healthy? So that I can minimize my enjoyment of life. As we can see, sometimes our first why may not be enough to fully connect with our deepest values. By continuing to question why things matters to us, we can discover the values that truly drive our motivation, internalize these values, and create a greater sense of autonomy in our lives. Next, we have that relatedness. Being self-determined does not mean being completely self-reliant. Based on the theory presented, we need to feel connected to others to flourish. How might knowledge of this psychological need help us become more self-determined? Consider a behavior that you would like to do more of, such as exercise. Are there people in your life that value this behavior? If so, can you connect with them about it? If not, how might you be able to find a new community that values this behavior? For example, at a group fitness class, gym, or even an online community, feeling like you are a part of a community can help increase the sense of values that you have a certain behavior. That's the importance of what we call these three basic psychological needs: competent, autonomy, and relatedness. For this, what we call intrinsic motivation, the flowchart is very essential for us to know. The need for autonomy, the need for competence, and the need for relatedness. Intrinsic motivation means engaging in a task for the reward inherent in the task, such as interest and enjoyment. Example, practicing an instrument because you take pleasure in it, and that is what we call intrinsic. Next, we have extrinsic motivation, engaging in a task for the reward outside of the task, such as grades of a certain learner or a student, or to the toddlers. Say, like example, the toys. So, in this extrinsic motivation, doing something because it leads to a separate outcome, such as praise. Practicing an instrument because your parents reward you for doing so. That's the different definition of what we call the intrinsic motivation and what we call the extrinsic motivation. So there are points to know. Points to know. They both involve rewards. It's not inside the individual and outside individual. And you can be high on both intrinsic and extrinsic motivation. How do intrinsic motivation and extrinsic motivation influence learning? First, both extrinsic and intrinsic motivation play a significant role in learning. Experts have argued that education traditional emphasis on external rewards such as grades, report cards, and gold stars undermines any existing intrinsic motivation that students might have. Then, others have suggested that extrinsic motivators help students feel more competent in the classroom, which in turn enhances their intrinsic motivation. Next, a person's interest often survives when a reward is used neither to bribe nor to control, but to signal a job well done, as in a most improved player award. So, if a reward boosts your feeling and, of course, competence after doing good work, your enjoyment of the task may increase. Next, we have rewards rightly administered can motivate high performance and creativity. Here, an extrinsic rewards such as scholarship, admissions, and jobs that often follow good grades are here to stay. Next, why do we do the things we do? What drives our behavior? Psychologists have proposed different ways of thinking about motivation, including looking at whether motivation arises from outside, or we call it the extrinsic, or inside, or we call it intrinsic of an individual. So let's try to see the importance or essentials of what we call self-determined versus non-self-determined behaviors. So when we talk of self-determined behavior, it is motivated by intrinsic reward, driven by enjoyment, interest, or satisfaction, and of course, the feeling of control. And if non-self determined behaviors, so meaning it is motivated by extrinsic rewards, driven by obligation or responsibility, and the feeling of lack of control. So looking to this example of what we call the self-determined versus non-self-determined behaviors. So extrinsic motivation, motivated to perform an activity to earn a reward or avoid punishment. And of course, on the side of that intrinsic motivation, motivated to perform an activity for its own sake and personal reward. Other example of how internal rewards drive behavior, extrinsic motivation, and then of course the intrinsic motivation. Participating in sport to win awards. And then, of course, on the other part, participating in a sport because you find the activity enjoyable. Second, cleaning your room to avoid being reprimanded by your parents. And then, of course, in intrinsic, cleaning your room because you like tidying up. Another example is we have competing in a contest to win a scholarship. Now, then, in the intrinsic part of motivation, solving a word puzzle because you find the challenge exciting. Next, an example is studying because you want to get a good grade. Then, on the other side, especially this intrinsic motivation, studying a subject so you find fascinating. So, there are these many examples that I give, my dear classmates, wherein we can internalize that rewards drive behaviors through the help of what we call the extrinsic motivation and that what we call intrinsic motivation. Next, we have what we call the organismic integration theory, still by Ryan and Deci 2010. Organismic theories in psychology are a family of holistic psychological theories which tend to stress the organization, unity, and integration of human beings expressed through its individual's inherent growth or development tendency. Here we have what we call more autonomy and internalized or value. A motivation then goes to what we call the intrinsic regulation. A motivation wherein it follows on this flowchart integrated regulation, identified regulation, introjected regulation, and external regulation. And of course, a motivation, under this we have what we call non-regulation. So let's try to understand the flow chart of what we call the organismic integrated theory. First is, so from the bottom, a motivation or what we call the non-regulation. Then here, no actions or just going through the motions, meaning they don't value the activity, they don't feel competent, and they don't even expect the outcomes to be desirable. Example is a student who doesn't know why she's in college, majoring in chemistry when she already has her own clothing business and the skills needed to run it. So college won't help her, so she drops out. Next, we have what we call the external regulation. Motivation is to satisfy an external demand. Pure behaviorism, think by B.F. Skinner and animals. Example, a middle school student who does an assignment to avoid parental confrontation. Another example, a student who takes pre-med courses to get into this school because he wants to be a physician only to have a lot of money. So that is what we call external uh, regulation. Next, we have what we call introjected regulation. It is taking a regulation but not accepting it as one's own. Here, it is to avoid guilt or anxiety, to attain ego enhancement, or what we call pride. Example of this is a student who selects chemical engineering as her major to prove to herself that she can do it. How about the identified regulation? So here, values a goal. Action is accepted or personally important. Example, a college student who takes an extra statistic course because she wants to be better understand a statistic and how it relates to her major. Another example is a high school student who willingly does extra work for math because he believes that it is important for him or for her to get into college. And then we have what we call integrated regulation. Here, it says identified with the importance of the behavior, but also integrates those identification with other aspect of self. Not intrinsic motivation, where the person is so engrossed that he loses time, may not be interested in. Example, a music student who takes an extra course in composing, even though it's not required, because an excellent performer and teacher. And now we come to a motivation, what we call intrinsic regulation. The activity is enjoyable as it is always said on the above mentioned, and then it is based on interest, and of course in comparison with what we call integrated. Intrinsic is really flow, which is peak intrinsic motivation. Okay, so upon knowing all of those explanation and given example regarding what we call the cognitive evaluation theory and of course the organismic integrated theory, we come now to what we call the impact of self-determination theory. So here in the workplace, people with self-determination feel more satisfied at work while also playing a key role in that organization's success. How can employers build self-determination in their workers? So here, by allowing team members to take an active role, offering employees greater responsibilities, and of course, offering support and encouragement, and of course, providing employees with meaningful feedback. In competition, the impact of self-determination theory in competitive settings such as sport and athletics, fostering a sense of self-determination can motivate people to excel. Some suggest that it works at least in part by increasing a person's level of mental toughness. So, say for example, athletes who feel that they are capable of achieving their grades and overcoming challenges are often driven to perform better. Excelling allows them to gain a sense of competence and build mastery in skills that are enjoyable and important to them. How about the impact of self-determination theory in social setting? Self-determination can also play an important role in social relationship. For instance, when people are new at an online group, if their needs of autonomy, relatedness, and competence, the three components of self-determination are fulfilled, it impacts their social identity, which in turn affect their participants or their participation behavior. How about the impact of self-determination theory in school setting? Self-determined students are more likely to feel motivated to achieve. They also tend to feel greater levels of competence and satisfaction. Educators can help students foster a sense of self-determination and intrinsic motivation. Here, example is that by providing unexpected positive feedback when students perform well to help improve their feelings of competence. So that is one. And of course, avoiding excessive external rewards for action students already enjoy, which help improve their internal motivation. Self-determination can play an important role in how people function in many different areas of their lives. So, the feeling in control and, of course, intrinsically motivated can help people feel more committed, passionate, interested, and satisfied with the things that they do. Motivation in school is, of course, not only about learners. Teachers themselves, or we teachers, are a decisive element in the classroom. So we need to bring our own personality and motivation to the classroom that is essential and important for our learners or our students to serve for them as an inspiration as they go through with their school activities. Now we come to what we call the final thoughts on self-determination. First, know your needs, desires, interests, strength, and limitation, and use this information to make choices. Be self-confident and have healthy self-esteem. Be creative, have a clear vision of the future, feel in control of your life, be a good self-advocate, be a good negotiator, have a good problem-solving skills, Identify and choose from several options and anticipate consequences for each. Take responsibility for your decisions, manage your behaviors, and take appropriate action, and then make future plans based on outcomes of previous action. Be persistent, and lastly, know where to find help when you need it. Those are given final thoughts on self-determination. So, from the given final thoughts self-determination, I challenge you, my dear classmates, dear teachers. Name one of these characteristics that you would like to make stronger for you and tell why. So I may now end my presentation with sayings. Self-determination is fine, but needs to be tempered with self-control. And another one we have, the difference between the impossible and the possible lies in a person's determination. These are my references. Thank you for listening. God bless us all.